Welcome to The Third Story. I'm Leo Sidran. A few years ago, I was doing the click and scroll, the usual late-night YouTube rabbit hole that one falls down, when I came across a video that really got my attention. In the video, a young boy who looked like maybe he was 7 or 8 years old stood facing the camera, and behind him, a man with white hair sat at a piano and tested the boy, challenging him to name all the notes he played, to sing intervals and pitches.
A.
A.
How about C?
C.
B flat?
B flat.
And not just one note at a time, they were polyphonic, they were chords, and the boy could pick out every note.
All right, sing me a D flat 7 over D major chord.
D, F sharp, A, D flat, F, A flat, C flat.
Very good, Dylan. I want you to name and sing and write down this.
F, C, G, A, E flat, A, B flat.
Very good.
It was astounding. This kid had a scary familiarity with the building blocks of music, a fluency. He saw the matrix, he understood how to hear, and he did it with a kind of nonchalance, like he was into it, but he was also looking forward to his snack after it was over.
Perfect. All right, this is going to be tricky. I want you to sing from the top down. This one.
A flat, G, E flat, D flat, B flat, A flat, C.
That's correct. Write it down.
And the reaction of the guy at the piano seemed to suggest that this kind of thing was totally normal. I thought, who are these people? What is going on? So it turns out that what that was one of the first videos that Rick Beato posted to YouTube. And I was not alone in my bewilderment and fascination. That video, along with a few more that Rick posted of himself and his son Dylan, went viral. Millions of views. And as Rick tells it, at first he didn't have any intention of reaching that kind of an audience. He simply made the videos with his son to demonstrate the development of Dylan's ear to some friends. Rick was a record producer, an engineer, a songwriter, a musician, not a YouTuber. But the gods of virality had other plans for him. Fast forward to 2021, Rick Beato's YouTube channel, Everything Music, has over 2 million subscribers, and he's put out nearly 800 videos, many with over 1 million views. A quick scan through his video playlists is like reading a brochure for a 21st Century Music Academy, with videos categorized into collections including ear training, music production, improvisation, scales and modes, film scoring, music theory and composition, guitars, and a playlist called Dylan Beato Videos. Now, Rick does this full-time. He doesn't produce records anymore, despite having been successful. He even co-wrote a #1 country hit, Carolina, with the band Parma Lee. He produced dozens of records and worked as a session player and engineer from the mid-90s until he gave it up to focus on his channel just a few years ago. Rick is a natural teacher, clearly very passionate about music and about music history, trends, technique, process. Sometimes he just plays the top 10 songs on Spotify and analyzes them in real time. Sometimes he dissects a classic pop song and talks about what makes it great, or he does it with a classic film cue. Sometimes he discusses music theory. Over time, he's become more involved in the debates around fair use of intellectual property on YouTube, and he's even testified before Congress about it. For curious musicians, music students, music appreciators in the YouTube generation, Rick's channel is simply part of the furniture, something you probably have come across one way or another. But despite being a very public-facing teacher and generator of ideas, there's not so much information about him out there. If you watch his videos, then you know that he lives in Atlanta, but that he's from the Northeast. You know that he went to Ithaca College, then to the New England Conservatory, then back to Ithaca College in his early 20s to teach as a professor. And at first, his students were only a few years younger than him. If you watch the videos, then you know a little bit about his kids, a little bit about his friends, a little bit about his interests, a little bit about his life. But he walks that fine line between that exhibitionism, which is a necessary evil of being a public figure, and the arm's length remove of a professor or a teacher. We talked recently about his personal journey, how he organizes his time, what motivates him and what inspires him, teaching high-information music to children, how much is enough sleep, staying fresh, why record producers tend to be more open-minded than you might think, and walking that fine line between presenting the information and being the information. Third-story.com is the place to go to sign up, subscribe, get involved, check the archive, click the socials. Check out previous episodes with record producers like Butch Vig, Glyn Johns, Andres Levine, John Leventhal, and many others. Or engineers like Al Schmidt, James Farber, Ryan Hewitt. Session players, songwriters, technologists, neuroscientists, novelists, filmmakers, editors, rappers, singers, actors, triple threats, cooks, wannabes, has-beens, freaks, geeks, all of it. It's all there. And when you're done digging into all of that, it's patreon.com/Third Story Podcast. I got the moves, you got the motion, and you know it's true. Here's me and Rick Beato talking it down last week.
Okay, just out of curiosity, how do you line the audio up, my audio up with what you're doing?
I have your audio coming through the computer in a Pro Tools session, so I will tab to transient the front of your first file.
Got it.
However,
Yep.
What I'm discovering with Zoom is that my voice is reaching you a little after I'm speaking and you're responding. So there's actually a little bit of the
little play. Yeah. It's always, these things are always a pain to do with Zoom because of the delays and things like that. I always find that the things never quite link up. I'm always taking out micro slices of things.
Me too, man. But, I've been going to school on you for the last week while I'm getting ready to talk to you and thinking about all of those little technical aspects of what you do that add up to a relatively relaxed and comfortable vibe from the viewer's point of view, but actually there's a lot of stuff going on under the hood to make that work.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of work involved. Yeah, for sure.
How is your life structured to accommodate all of this output that you've been doing?
Well, I work a lot of hours. Yeah, so I have 3 kids. My wife works. I do this full time, YouTube. And with my kids going virtual right now, it's, I'm going up and making lunch for them and coming back down, working on videos. And it's 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, pretty much. I mean, honestly, it's a lot of work.
How does the workload and the work-life balance compare to making records?
I actually work more than I worked when I was making records because I had an assistant that had been my assistant for, he was actually in yesterday. So now 21 years or so. And he could do things. I could leave and he could work on things. He could edit. He could record things. He's an excellent musician, which made it where I didn't have to be tied to the computer all the time. Whereas I shoot and edit all my videos. So it's more work.
Why do you manage all of that? Why do you do all of that work?
Because I make my videos kind of like you would make a song in that, it needs an extra piece here or something. Or, yeah, that's not very clear. I have to punch that in right there. Or I have use my stream of consciousness when I start a video and I'll shoot maybe 8 minutes or so. Then I'll look at it. And if there's some good stuff in it, I might fill in some areas that I think need a little bit more. And it just is faster if I just do it myself.
I saw this video. Actually, I think it definitely came out this week. It was a video that you made kind of a rant about 1991, the fall of 1991, and why that year and that 6-month period was so significant. People can reference the video. But what you said at the beginning jumped out at me. You said, I've been trying to figure out how to make a video about this, and I couldn't find the hook. So I'm just going to talk.
Right.
And when you said I couldn't find the hook, it really felt like you were talking about songwriting.
That's right. That's exactly what it is. You have to have a hook. All of your videos need to have a narrative, and you're the storyteller. I didn't know what the perspective I wanted to discuss this from, because was it me in 1991 watching this happen? Well, that doesn't put enough focus on the music, because the music's the most important thing. People don't care about me, but I want to give the perspective of what it was like to be 29 in 1991, experiencing this firsthand. So I can't take myself out of the story completely, but so when I was making the video, I couldn't make it. I just couldn't make it work. So I figured I'll go on live stream and I'll vamp and I'll get people's input from it.
You say people want to know about the music. They don't want to know about you, or they're more focused on the music than they are on you. But as a YouTuber, I think that is a pretty subtle interaction, that interplay between the material and the presenter of the material.
Yes. Ultimately, my channel is about music. It's not about me. I mean, it's about my experience with music, but People come to my channel, I think, to learn things. I don't want to waste people's time with my own personal. I mean, I do tell a lot of personal stories, though, and there's some of my biggest videos are personal stories. So it's hard to say. I just never want to be the. It's a tough balance between being the. Am I the story? No, the music is the story. I just always have to keep that in mind. That's why people come to my channel.
I think it's really interesting. I mean, that's why I say it's a subtle balance, because if people follow your videos, they know a lot about you. And even getting ready for this conversation, I have to just assume that whoever's listening to this may not know those things about you, because if you're a regular subscriber watching all the videos, people know where you went to college, what you did after college, where you taught, what you did while you were teaching, what happened, your trajectory has kind of been outlined as a sideline of all of the material you've been teaching.
It's funny because there's very little about me personally on the internet from the beginning to 2015 when I did the videos with my son Dylan. I never let any bands take my picture ever. I never let them make videos in the studio. Never.
Why?
Because I never wanted people. I didn't want to be part of the story. It was always about the bands. I would never credit myself, or most of the time when I'd play on records, I didn't like to credit myself. I didn't like to credit myself for anything. It's always about keep the focus on the artist. That was always the most important thing. The story isn't about me. It's about the music.
So you felt like the guy behind the guy.
Yes. And so I just didn't want to be, I'm in the picture. I got my arm around the band, whatever, the artist. I just didn't want to be that guy. I just want to be, okay, I produce your music. I spend all my energy on that. And that's it. I want to just be behind the scenes. So it was strange to come out because there's no record of me working with anyone, because there's just no pictures of me with any artists ever.
Right. So let's talk about that. I mean, on your YouTube channel, the sort of teaser video that comes up is just a presentation that you made at the beginning of the launch of your channel, where you say, well, I'm going to talk about all things music. This is what we're going to talk about. This is who I am. What did it feel like for you after being behind the scenes for so long to be recording that video? Even looking at you in that video, you have a slightly more self-aware vibe than you have developed over time. You got more comfortable. You got more natural. What did it feel like when you started the channel?
It was very weird. I felt like a used car salesman. I said that in my very first video that I made. That was my channel trailer that you're referring to. And then I made my first video, and I literally say my assistant Ken was recording the audio in the control room. It's probably the only video that he actually worked on where he recorded the audio. And I said, and I'm getting ready, and I said, can you hear me? I feel like a used car salesman here. And I just left that in. And it was really odd to be in front of the camera from never having done it before. And it's very strange. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine today about live streaming. When you live stream, you talk to the computer and you look at the comments. And I do live streams all the time. I never even think about it. But it's really odd if you haven't done it before. But it's like anything. You just get used to it. I get used to talking to the camera. I just look at it, talk to it like it's a person.
What was going on in your life? What led you to that moment where you said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a YouTube channel.
I had an intern named Rhett Shull who has a YouTube channel with 300,000 subscribers himself. And he was a big YouTube watcher. And he just came in one day. He'd been interning for me for a few years. And he said, hey, you should start a YouTube channel. This is after those Dylan videos that were, the massive millions and tens of millions of views. And I thought, nobody's going to watch a white-haired guy on YouTube. And I said, I was like, what am I going to talk about? He said, just teach, like all the stuff you talk about when you work with bands, or, you used to be a college professor, to talk about music. I'm going to come in tomorrow. And and then I said, I don't know how to use a camera. I've never owned a camera. He said, I'll come in tomorrow and make your channel trailer. So Rhett made my channel trailer the next day. And then about 6 days later, I made my first video. And then I made 344 videos the first year.
Did you watch YouTube? Did you start diving deep into YouTube to see what other people were doing?
I had watched YouTube, but he told me about a few channels to check out. There were some channels like Vsauce. Most of the channels I followed were science channels and a few music channels, but really mainly science channels. And on Casey Neistat was a guy that Rhett told me to check out. He was doing a daily vlog at the time. He had done 500 some odd in a row. They were all 10-minute videos, and they got millions of views. I said, well, this is ridiculous. He's just doing his day-to-day life. I thought, okay, so I guess to to be a YouTuber, you have to make a video every day. That was my thing. Just from watching his thing. He makes a video every day, so I guess I have to make a video every day. And that's what I did.
So at the beginning, it was about you had to have as much output as possible.
That seemed to be the thing that people were doing then. Daily vlogging was really big in 2016 when I started. So I would make videos. I was still producing, and I'd make videos at night after the bands left. I'd set up and I made most of my early videos were just with my iPhone. Then I bought a camera, but I would make videos. I'd say, okay, today we're going to do a video. We're going to break down a cue from The Shawshank Redemption, Thomas Newman. And then tomorrow we're going to talk about giant steps. And then the day after we're going to talk about mixing, and it's just all over the place, and drum tuning and everything, how to double mic toms or whatever it would be. I mean, I have so many different topics, but the beginning of my channel was really a lot of advanced music theory, basically, and improvisation, because that was the thing that I thought I needed to do something different than what was out there. And I said to myself, there's no YouTube channel for professional musicians. And professional musicians, they don't have time to work on new things typically. And a lot of times people want to have input, but they can't take lessons. They don't have time, or they just want to get ideas from people. So that was I was like, okay, I'm going to provide ideas for pros. And it was really sophisticated music theory. I was a college professor in my 20s, and so a lot of music theory, ear training, things like that. Those were the first videos I made, and it took off from there.
When you started, was there a sense that this could make money? I mean, already at that point, 2016, 2017, was a YouTube monetization thing something that you would think about when you launched?
Not really. I mean, I didn't know how you could make a living from it. Still, 1 million views pays $1,250 to $1,800, depending on where they are. It's hard to get 1 million views on a video. I mean, I have 800 plus videos, and maybe not, or 790 videos on my channel, something like that. And I have a lot of videos with 1 million views or more. But, typically, I think my videos average, if you average them out, about 360,000 views per video, something like that, which is a lot, but it's, but it's not a huge amount of money. And it's, especially since a lot of my videos are demonetized. When I play anything I play music in is demonetized, so that there's no money from it. So
yes, and you've shared a lot of this process on the channel, but it is really interesting, particularly from the point of view of teaching, where the sort of commercial aspect of YouTube and the teaching aspect of what you do are intersecting. It's really complicated, particularly because you teach music.
Right.
So the main thing that you need to be able to demonstrate is the thing that demonetizes the content.
Correct. So I had to make a conscious choice that I wasn't going to let the ability to make money from the videos interfere with what I needed to play people to teach, which meant that a lot of my videos, or most of my videos, were going to be demonetized. So right up front, I said, I'm not going to let what I play in the videos, or I'm not going to make videos just to make money. I'm going to make videos to teach people things, which means using examples, which means demonetized videos.
Is it unmonetized or demonetized?
Demonetized. Well, they're monetized to the artists.
Yeah.
I just did What Makes a Song Great video with the Cars, just what I needed. Yeah. Well, Rick Ocasek's family gets the money from that since he's a songwriter. So they make all the money from my video.
And those What Makes That Song Great series, or when you listen to the top 10 on Spotify and analyze it, those tend to get a lot of numbers. And so it looks like there's a little bit of a game that's being played also where you make sure that you do enough of those to keep people coming back. And then maybe you can slip one in that's also compelling, but that you can monetize.
But I don't think of it that way.
You don't think about it in those terms?
No. I just make whatever video I want to make, whether it gets demonetized or not. I don't care. I don't fight the demonetizations,
Do you pay attention to what's doing well, what's resonating, and does that influence the way you approach the channel?
I try to find topics that are interesting to me. For example, I'm working on a video today called the Y2k Curse, and it's about why certain artists couldn't make it past the year 2000. And it's something that a lot of artists that were big in the 90s, I came up with 35 different artists that were big in the 90s that just completely fell apart and did nothing in the 2000s. And then I talked about artists that were able to make it over that, like the Foo Fighters, for example, that started in the mid-'90s and then are still successful, and why that was. I've always been interested in trends in music and the kind of historical significance. And there was the Telecommunications Act of 1996 that Bill Clinton signed into law that essentially created this consolidation of all media to 6 huge corporations from 80. In 1983, I don't know, 80 companies own 90% of the media in the United States, whereas in 2011, 6 companies own 90% of the media in the United States. So that had a direct impact on these bands and artists starting right around after that, you know, because there was all these companies, Clear Channel. Well, I mean, it was really GE, News Corp, Viacom, you know, but you had Clear Channel, you had Cumulus, you had things like that started. They would buy up all these radio stations, then they would have one person would program them, and then you started getting these really homogenized playlists. Then new metal came in around, 99 became really big. That was, and then you had active rock and you had AAA were the 2 main radio formats. Whereas before you had alternative rock that happened because of grunge, which my last video was about, the fall that changed, that rocked the world. So this is kind of a continuation of that thing about what happened through the 90s and how music business started to fragment around 2000 or so. So anyway, so that to me is really fascinating, these kind of trends in music and the historical significance.
You think like a teacher and like a historian. And as you mentioned, you started out early in your career, you were a teacher. You originally went to Ithaca College, then you went to NEC, then you ended up in your 20s teaching at Ithaca College. You're only a handful of years older than your students. Did you want to be a teacher?
No. I liked teaching, but I finished at NEC and I moved back to Ithaca to hang out with some of my friends that were still in school. And I was just going to live there for a month or so. I was crashing in one of my buddies' living rooms. And my old teacher, Steve Brown, offered me a gig teaching at Ithaca in the fall. And I thought about it for a couple of weeks. He's like, you don't have to let me know today, but you got to let me know in the next couple of weeks. Teaching jazz studies. And I said, okay, I'll try it out. And I was 24 or something like that. I can't remember now. I think 24 when I started there. And I taught until I was 30. So I taught from 87 to 92. And it was strange. I mean, it was strange 2 years before being a student and then being a professor and going in the faculty lounge. And some of the students that were freshmen were seniors. And I was their professor then, But I didn't really go out and try and become a teacher. But I love teaching.
Did you see yourself as a jazz musician? You taught jazz studies at NEC. Well, this is the other thing. You started out as a bass player, then you switched to guitar, right? You had already kind of been on a little bit of a journey by the time you were 24.
Yes. Yeah, so I was a classical bass major in my undergrad, but music ed. And then my master's I did in jazz guitar at NEC. So, I played guitar. I started on the cello, then I went to bass, and I played that all the way through. I've played actually through my master's degree because I used to play in the pit orchestra at the American Repertory Theater in Boston. So I played bass there, and then I was a jazz guitar major at NEC, and I played a lot of gigs around town playing guitar. But I really was focused on jazz for mainly through the 80s until the late 80s or so, and then I shifted to going back to rock.
You mentioned in one of the early Dylan videos, you said, there's no video of me with my dad. There's no video of me when I was a kid doing anything with my dad, musical or otherwise. And I wish I had something like that. And so you documented Dylan's journey from the beginning. When I heard you say that in that video, it sort of raised the question of like, did you have a musical relationship with your dad? Where did music start for you?
So my dad was a big jazz listener. He collected records. My dad would be almost 102. Next month he would be 102 if he were still alive. And he liked really complex bebop for some reason, and he wasn't a musician, but he loved bebop. I mean, that was just, Oscar Peterson, Joe Pass, Charlie Parker, John Coltrane. I mean, Ahmad Jamal. He loved really sophisticated music. For a non-musician, it was really interesting. So he would play records all the time when I was a kid. And my mom, her whole family were all music teachers. My mom didn't play anything, but my Aunt Penny was a music teacher. My Aunt Marion was a music teacher. My grandfather played guitar. So we really had a lot of music in the family. But I was the first one, myself and then my younger brother John, out of 7 that were the ones that were musicians.
You were 7 kids.
Yes.
And where'd you grow up?
In Fairport, New York, just outside Rochester.
As soon as you became a musician, your younger brother said, I'm going there too.
Yeah. Oh, within weeks. And my brother plays guitar. He's a great guitar player. He doesn't do it for a living, but he plays he was playing in a band that was a big band in Rochester, a cover band. And he practices every day. He still plays all the time. He's a great guitar player.
Did you get a sense from all that listening that you did in the house that it oriented you or it affected you? I mean, that's become a big part of your advocacy, is what kids listen to and how it can change the way they develop. Did some of that start with your own personal experience?
Yes, definitely. Because of the music that we listened to at the house that my dad listened to, I didn't realize it, but my ear was incredibly well developed. Now, I don't have perfect pitch, but I have extremely good relative pitch and really good pitch memory. And I know for a fact that listening to that, what I call high information music, changed my brain and the way I listen to music. No question about it. And I think it actually changes it restructures the brain for babies if they listen to really complex music. I've always believed that. That's why the idea of playing nursery rhymes for kids doesn't make any sense. You should play the Well-Tempered Clavier for kids, You should play things that use all 12 tones.
Let's keep talking about that a little bit because, you had clearly developed this thinking by the time you had kids.
Yeah.
When you became a father, you had a lot of music that you were ready to play for your kids.
Yeah, well, before Dylan was born, I made up these playlists and started playing them on my wife's stomach. But it was really based off one musician friend of mine, Aydin Essen, his name is. And I talked to Aydin today, actually. He's a Turkish pianist. Aydin's one of the greatest improvisers I've ever heard. He taught a class, actually, at the New School. And when I interviewed Chris Potter, I mentioned to Chris, I said, Chris, you went to the New School, right? He said, yeah. I said, I taught for a semester the spring of 1988. I taught the jazz contemporary harmony class. And I said, I subbed for my friend Aydin Essen. He said, oh my God. This wasn't in the interview. This was after the interview was over. I was talking to Chris. And he said, I took that class with Aydin. That was the scariest class. Like Brad Meldau was in the class, all these people. And Aydin was the professor. And Aydin was in his 20s then, and Aydin's just one of the greatest improvisers ever, and he's not known by people. And I had all these improvisations that he did in 1986, 87, 88 on cassettes that I had digitized, and I said, if you play Aydin's improvisations for a baby, will it sound normal to them with all this polytonality, all these just unbelievable, linear things. And so I made up these playlists of Aydin's improvs and played them for Dylan before he was born. I played mostly that. And not only does it sound normal to them, but it changes their brain. And that's why Dylan has the kind of ear he has.
And where is Dylan in the age?
He's the oldest. He's 13.
He's the oldest. What about your other kids after Dylan? What has their reaction been to the same process?
So we never did it with the other two, my 2 girls. One of the reasons is when my middle daughter, Lennon, was born, we didn't even know anything worked with Dylan. It just was, honestly, it was kind of, my wife was like, I don't want to do that headphones on the stomach thing. I'm like, okay, fine. It wasn't until Dylan was almost 4 that I realized he had perfect pitch. And by then Lennon was already born. She's 2 years younger. And so then we really just didn't do it for the girl. I mean, we, played him music and everything, but it wasn't like with Dylan. And not for any particular reason, just that I didn't realize that anything worked. I think that there's a genetic component to this, though. My younger brother, John, we like all the same kind of music, really sophisticated modern classical music, jazz, rock. So there has to be some type of genetic thing. And then my daughters like the same, they like the same kind of things, They like the same stuff I like.
But they also grew up with you. And so that, that is the ultimate question. Obviously, it's not only relative to music, it's relative to so many other aspects of personality and talent and proclivity and preference and all that stuff. But, when I look at your experience with Dylan, I think both are happening. I think what we are witnessing is an exceptional pupil of an exceptional syllabus.
Some people I think thought, oh, why are you performing this experiment on your son? And it's like, what do you mean experiment? I'm just playing music for him. That's it. Just like you would, I'm just not playing nursery rhymes. I'm not playing Baby Shark. I'm playing Prokofiev's Third Piano Concerto. And babies like that too. Little kids like that.
I spoke to Jacob Collier early on, really before he made his first record or anything, about how sounds are very emotional for him. Like he grew up learning how to process emotions through translating sounds that he heard. And it wasn't the usual major, minor, diminished, augmented sounds. I mean, he was like naturally responding to some overtones and things that I think most of us don't even hear. And it was clear that his mother was a music teacher, and she just taught him how to hear and translate what he was hearing and name it and know it.
So I noticed that Dylan is he's not locked into pitch, into a grid. Anything that's out of tune doesn't bother him. He doesn't even, I remember one time I was playing the Bright Size Life Pat Metheny record for Dylan on my turntable in here, and I said, yeah, see, this is in D, Dylan. I was playing the song Bright Size Life. Then I would go to the piano. I realized my turntable's running sharp. And I said, Dylan, did you notice that it's running sharp? He goes, how would I know? I've never heard the song before. And I was like, what? Then I realized it's like he's saying that maybe it's supposed to be like that. How would I know? It doesn't matter to him. He doesn't have a fixed grid in his mind. Yet if I ask him to sing a C and I'm holding a tuner in my, on my phone, it'll be dead on in the center. But for him, if it's flat or sharp or whatever, he'll say, if it's, oh, that's a C sharp, like a blend between the two notes.
We learn music with the understanding that pitch is a grid, but that's a construct.
Right. I used to say pitch is a place, not an area, when I'd work with artists. And it's like, actually, I have it exactly wrong. Pitch is an area, not a place.
But it depends on the function of it, though, right? Because and this is a great way to sort of pivot to the other part of your career. So here you are, you're 29 years old, already with a long experience of teaching. You're playing jazz. You're clearly thinking about these kind of like big questions. And at some point, you start to transition into a career as a mainstream rock producer.
Yeah.
So what happened? Tell me about that. How did that happen?
I had a buddy back in Ithaca that asked me to play on a demo, and I said, I was like, some songs he had written. I was like, man, I don't really play on demos. What do you mean? What do you mean playing on a demo? Oh, I have this 8-track reel to reel, and you just come over and play some guitar parts. And so I was like, all right, fine. So I go over and do it. And then a few weeks later, he calls me up. He says, I heard from the vice president of Elektra Records, and he wants to sign us to a development deal, give us money to write songs. And I said, well, what are you talking about? And he says, he wants to give us money to write songs. What do you mean us? And he said, well, you and me. I told him that you worked with him. I said, yeah, I didn't write any of the songs. And so he said, yeah, he's going to give us $5,000 to write these songs. I said, $5,000 to do what? And he said, to write and demo some songs. So Alan says, he goes, you've written songs before? I said, yeah, I wrote songs in my high school rock band and stuff. And he said, yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So we started writing songs together and eventually got signed to a publishing deal with Polygram in right after I finished my last year at Ithaca in 92. Got a publishing deal with Polygram, or before I finished, got a major publishing deal as a writer. Then I ended up moving down to Atlanta here in 94.
Why Atlanta?
I just couldn't deal with another winter, honestly, up in Rochester or up in the Northeast. So I moved down here and didn't know anyone except one of my old college roommates. I knew one person.
Was there any kind of scene, any kind of rock scene in Atlanta in 94?
There was definitely a rock scene, kind of post-grunge alternative rock scene. And I started playing in a band here and started writing songs, and the band called Billionaire. We got a record deal with Universal, and got dropped. We actually got signed to London Sire Records, and they got bought out. We got caught up in the whole consolidation of the music business in 1999 when it all started.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in the meantime, I started producing bands as something to do as a job, because it was fun, because I loved being in the studio, I realized.
Did you know anything about recording at that?
Nothing. I knew nothing. So I had an engineer buddy of mine that was engineering things, and he goes, I'm going away for the weekend. I'm going to leave you the keys to the studio. Why don't you go in? Here's the Pro Tools manual. Go in and mess around with it. So I stayed up for 2 days straight in his studio, and I worked on learning how to engineer and mix, and I read magazines and did all this stuff. I took notes, and I taught myself engineering. Then as a producer, then I started working with a lot of famous engineers and mixers, and I would just ask them questions. I was always the student, and I started accumulating all my gear, and I built this studio here. And every record we tried different miking techniques. Just always experimenting with things. Everybody that I interviewed, I know you interviewed Glyn Johns, and
I have that configuration over the kit right now, and I've talked to him about it.
I see that. So I would, I had Jack Joseph Puig. I think Jack actually assisted for Glyn at one point, and I asked Jack about how he mic'd the drums on this Jellyfish record. Oh, this is how. And he comes out. I was at Ocean Way, and he says, there was a drum set there, and he just set up the mics, and it was Glyn Johns. It was that thing. And so all these people, I worked with Randy Staub that did the Metallica Black album. I've worked with Chad Blake, so many different people. And I asked them questions on how they did all these great records that I love the sounds of. And I, got a great education without ever having to work in a studio or under someone, just while I was producing artists. Because I understood the arranging part of it from being I taught jazz arranging. I mean, I knew I know about how to arrange things, or if you have to write a string arrangement or any type of a horn arrangement or anything, I could do any of that. So it was really about the technical parts of recording that I found absolutely fascinating.
The joke is like you put 10 producers in a room and you'll get 15 opinions of or definitions of what a producer does. Every producer is a different kind of producer, but you seem like such a natural teacher. Did you see your role as producer as being related to your role as teacher? Did you see it as part of the same impulse or process?
Yeah, I think that's why Rhett, my intern, thought I would be great on YouTube, because I always would teach the bands about recording and about arranging. I wouldn't just say, this is what we're going to do. I would say, this is what I think we should do, and this is why. And here's 5 different options of what it could be. You could play a part like this, or the song needs this, or it needs this type of bass sound, or whatever. Or we need to go for this type of drum sound for this song. And here's why. And I would play him examples of things. And so that was really, from Rhett seeing me do that with groups, he said, you should be doing that with your own YouTube channel. And that was really an outgrowth of that.
I think you in particular, because you are such a natural teacher, and also then you sort of back it up with all of this experience, really speak to the moment right now of the way people are educating themselves. I mean, you came through a sort of more formal education. I don't see that you have any real problem with that kind of education.
No.
But at the same time, you represent a sort of open source education where people can kind of find what they want and pull on whatever thread is interesting to them. And you make most of your content available for free. There's other stuff people can buy. They can buy your book. They can support you in different ways. But most of what we learn from you is available to everybody. So that's kind of new in the arc of music education in the last 100 years, popular music education.
I was a big fan, or am a big fan, of Khan Academy. Sal Khan, when he started that was a resource that my kids used at their school. And I was on the school board for 3 years at my kids' school, and I was head of the academic committee. And one of the resources that the school used, and a lot of school uses, is Khan Academy. And that was one of the first free online on YouTube resources that anyone anywhere in the world that had an internet connection could use. So really, my channel I was like, I want to make the Khan Academy of Music, where you just give all these ideas away. Yeah, I have my book that I sell, and I have an ear training course.
Yep.
But that's pretty much it. But I make all my videos for free. I don't have anything behind a paywall, nothing like that. It's just like I want people to be able to take advantage of what I was so lucky to have, which is a world-class education. Starting as a child in the town that I grew up in had one of the best orchestras and concert bands, wind ensembles, one of the best music programs in the country. And we had 11 full-time music faculties. The head of the music department in my high school was an Eastman doctor. He had a doctorate from Eastman, and it was in Rochester. So a lot of the teachers, they went to the University of Indiana. They went to they went to all really top-notch music schools. They all had master's degrees, and they were pros. And I was very lucky to have grown up there, and people invested in the community, invested in the music program. And so my thing was like, I want to be able to, everybody should be that fortunate. So I'm going to provide whatever I can, whatever I know, for free to people.
Do you still see what you do as a resource for professional musicians, or is it semi-professional, amateurs, music lovers? I mean, do you think of it as being a tool for professionals?
Yeah, I think it's a tool for, since I have, 800 videos, if you go, I have, 25 videos on film scoring that anyone can watch. If you're a film composer, I have videos on John Williams and Bernard Herrmann and James Newton Howard and Thomas Newman, and, where I break down cues. I'll do, a score reduction of a piano reduction of things, and I'll have it on the screen with the scene from the movie, and then I'll talk about what's going on with it, right? Those videos are out there. They will always be out there. So eventually, I have a lot of people that follow my channel. There's over 2 million, and a lot of people are not musicians at all that just find it, interesting to, if I'm talking about 1991, and I happen to have lived basically the entire history of rock music from 1962 on. And you think about the Beatles' first record in 62. So that's, I think it's an interesting perspective for people.
It's also an interesting thing for you to say, I lived the kind of arc of rock and roll. You were there for all of it. And I think it's interesting that at this stage in our sort of popular culture and in your life, there's almost more opportunity for you to be talking about the music and explaining it than there is to be making it and selling it. That the business has sort of fallen away. And not only the business, but the way we consume and digest and think about a lot of the music that is so meaningful to you that you talk about.
That's really true. YouTube especially has become this place where people go to learn things. I mean, obviously, if you want to fix your hot water heater, you go to YouTube. If there's some light that goes off in your car and you want to know about it, you go to YouTube. When my new camera comes out that I just got, there's 25 videos on it. No, there's 125 videos on it. And what are the basic settings that I need to know for the camera? And they just go through it. And there's people that have 500,000 million subscribers, and those are the videos I will gravitate towards, right? And these are pros that know the stuff and make really pro videos on it. And that is the university. That's the, for anything you want to learn, you go to YouTube. So I've been really fortunate that I started when I did, and there are a lot of opportunities. And the thing that's amazing, Leo, is that for somebody I'll be 59 in a couple months. Most people are just about at the end of their career by that age, and I'm kind of at the beginning of my career, at least with this.
Do you feel like you reinvented yourself?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I don't necessarily think about it like that. I don't really think about things like that. I'm always just thinking about what the next, just kind of brainstorming what I kind of have all these ideas that me and all my musician friends would talk about, and those end up just becoming my videos. Just the conversations that we have on things. And I remember when, like, this Y2k Curse, I said, man, this is a term that I used back 20 years ago. It's like, why can't these bands, why have all these bands just flopped? They couldn't make it over Y2k. It's something about that. And I thought, oh, that'll be a good topic for a video.
Well, what I like about that is that as long as you're having conversations, as long as you continue to talk and think and care about it, there'll be always another thing to make a video about, because also imagine, particularly when this becomes your livelihood, that you kind of wake up every morning and go, I got to dig deep into the well today and figure out what do I have to say. Not that you don't have a wealth of things to talk about, but everybody comes up a little dry sometimes, just like when you go to write a song. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's less there.
Yeah, it's I mean, one of the things that, much to the dismay of a lot of the people that follow my channel, I like popular music. Like, I can listen to the top 10 of Spotify and make videos on it because I understand production.
Yep.
There's something, you know this from being a music producer, most music producers I know are much more open-minded about music, and they look at it. They don't just look at the song elements. They look at the production elements that make up the song and how important those are. They're just as important. The mix is as important as the song is. And you can say, well, any great song should be able to be played on an acoustic guitar with a voice. It's like, well, that's actually not true, because many of the elements of the songs that make them interesting are the actual sonics of them. I mean, would With or Without You be a hit without that Ebo guitar that goes through? I mean, there's so many, if Smells Like Teen Spirit didn't have the dynamics to it, there's so many creative production elements in today's popular music, even though there's things like auto-tune that drive people nuts and stuff like that, and drive me nuts, and the fact that everything is to a grid and there's no tempo variation, but there's so many people that have really creative minds and creative ears for sound that blow me away.
Yes. I mean, this is the moment for that. And, you talk about YouTube. When I said to you, it's interesting that this is a time filled with opportunity to be on YouTube, maybe more than even being on the road or selling CDs or doing all the things that you would have thought were the way to become successful in music 20, 30 years ago. One of the things, though, that I feel in YouTube, and it's just kind of a fact of life right now, is that we're off of the linear development, time development of music, like this followed this, followed this, followed this. Somebody can watch your video and understand what was happening in 1990, let's see, leading up to 91, that made those records punch even harder, resonate even more deeply, feel more radical culturally than we might even realize today. But when you can go to YouTube and watch Michael Jackson, U2, Louis Armstrong, and Lady Gaga in the sort of the same sitting and not really understand that these all kind of had their own historical moment and that they followed something that was before them and then something followed that. I think production may be changing as a result of that, and young listeners who don't have the benefit of listening to high information music when they're young are translating the popular impulses differently. They don't have a sense of the time scale of
the historical significance and the I think of my job as kind of a curator, to try and be a historian and be a curator of these kind of how these things lined up, so I talked about the 1991 and the development of alternative radio, and now I'm on to the mid 90s and Lilith Fair, and so that's just one style video, and then I might do a video on, I don't know. I'm going to do a live stream later today on borrowed chords and modulations. And it's going to be a whiteboard lecture.
Do you is it exhausting? And do you think like, oh man, I wish I could take a month off of this and just reset?
That's a great question. I've never gone more than 5 days without putting out a video in 4 years. Well, this is my 5th year now. In June, it'll be 5 years. Do I get exhausted? Not really. I've improved as a video maker, I guess, visually, and I think I've improved with my ideas even as far as how I present them, because I understand the craft of making videos a lot better than I did. So it's fun, even if I revisit something. I had done videos of all the modes of the major scale, melodic minor, harmonic major, double harmonic major scales. And then I started remaking them, new versions of them, much better production values. I haven't done that with that many things. I haven't remade any videos, but those were great because I thought those were important to remake. But I never think about burning out. There's so much stuff to talk about. Oh my God. And there's a lot of current stuff. I mean, I have many videos on copyright, on blocking, on fair use. And that's just been a whole thing that I never even thought about until YouTube.
But I think that's where your personal personality, personal experience, even with the channel, overlaps with teaching material. And I think it's kind of amazing that, you say, look, I'm not just teaching you something that I learned 20 years ago, 40 years ago. I'm teaching you a thing that I'm discovering now as I'm trying to present this material to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's been good to educate people. I testified before the House subcommittee on IP, I don't know, about 3 months ago or so, because of my videos on Content ID, and I've actually talked to people at Google about this. I did a thing with a bunch of their programmers about how they could improve their Content ID program, and I mean, this is nothing I ever thought that I would be involved. I never knew anything about this. Making the public aware of people that block videos and why they do that. I think it's important. Yeah. I think it's important. I respect people being able to make a living from there, and I don't ever fight these copyright Content ID strikes or anything like that. I'm all about the artist getting paid. I'm a writer. Totally respect that. But people blocking or censoring things is I'm not really big on that. And so I'm tried to educate people on that as I've gone along, and that's been interesting.
Do you miss making records?
I would say no until recently. I love recording sounds. I love recording things for my videos. Anytime I do a video where I record, I did this. One of my most fun videos I've done in the last 3 or 4 months, I did a video where I reimagined Stairway to Heaven, the Stairway to Heaven solo section. And I had my friend Phil X, he imitated Eddie Van Halen. This came out the day before Eddie Van Halen died. And then Eric Johnson. Yep. And I imitated what I thought Peter Frampton would have played if he played over Stairway to Heaven. But in recreating the track to the solo section of Stairway to Heaven was so fun. Oh my God. These are just things that I never would have had time to do as a producer. You'd never go in the studio and do that, but making a video of it is so great. What if, videos like that, those are really fun. So that kind of helped when I'm wanting to produce stuff. I make videos like that. So I actually do videos on production.
I see sometimes people in comments asking you to listen to their bands or to give feedback on what they're doing.
100 emails a day, honestly, about that. At least 100 emails a day I get just of people sending me their songs.
Why do you think they're sending them to you, and what do you think they want you to do or say?
They want my opinion on them. Unfortunately, I can't. I don't have time to answer the emails, and occasionally I will listen to something depending on when I get the email. But when you get 300 emails a day, it's because a lot of them are related to things that I'm doing with my channel. If I'm trying to coordinate something for a video, whatever it is, and you're constantly searching through to see if so-and-so wrote you back or whatever. And so, yeah, right. So that's tough. But people want my opinion on their music, and I don't know, because they see how I react to other people to music when I listen to it, I guess.
You are very thoughtful about what makes music work, what you like, and how it's put together. And, you have endless ideas about that. When it comes to the business, do you have thoughts about it also? I mean, do you have a sense of what you would say to an aspiring band, artist, producer, even somebody who wanted to build a studio, much like you did, at a pretty early? I mean, you're describing that you started recording and within a handful of years you had accumulated gear and built a studio. It's pretty fast transition.
Yeah, I had a platinum record as a producer within 2 years or so of when I started. But I had so much experience leading up to that it was it's not really, that's to me is not really a fair comparison with what I tell people is that most people that get discovered nowadays are people that have social media followings, frankly. That's just, when I ask my A&R friends, where do you find new artists? TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, the usual places, social media.
Yeah. One aspect of that, though, is that even as a producer, a big part of your job was to help mold and craft and guide the acts that you worked with in that sort of older development model. And today, the business is actually more designed around capturing something that's already generating some interest and exploiting it. There's less room for that development phase.
There's no room for it. I mean, really. It has to be ready to go and selling for somebody to do anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah. But here you are informing, teaching this next generation of people to how to make the music.
Yeah. And, maybe although I don't teach how to be successful on YouTube, but I think ultimately you have to be able to communicate with people. And that's the, YouTube is about narrative. Can you tell a story? And I think that being an artist, successful artist, are you interesting to watch? Are you interesting to listen to? And can you communicate emotion to people through your voice, through your instrument, through the way you move on stage, whatever it is, I mean, these are the things, some people are interesting to watch, just period. That's intangible. What makes a person interesting to watch? I don't know, but when I see it, I know it.
Do you think you are it?
Me? No, I don't know. I don't know. Am I interesting to watch? I don't know. I don't have any perspective on that. I don't.
I feel that. I mean, I think it's so interesting, man, because as a producer, it is your job to help artists see themselves in a way that they can't see themselves, see the potential in the work that they're doing, unlock things that are there for them, And like so many singers who hate the sound of their voice in playback and don't know if it's a good take and want to redo it, the producer can help to sort of say, it's good, it's there, or no, it's not. And yet, even as a producer, a recovering producer, somebody who has been a producer, you don't see yourself as the artist or the asset. I mean, 3 or 4 times I've asked you, do you see yourself as the story? And you're saying, no, I'm not the story. I'm just here to present the material.
Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, I always have this idea like, well, if I stop putting out videos that nobody would ever think, in 4 months, it'd be Rick Beato who? I think people just move on. I don't know. I mean, I don't really have any, I don't have any perspective on it. I just keep making videos on things I think are interesting. And, when I look at the views that I get, I guess other people think that it's interesting too. So, my kids think I'm boring.
Oh, well, that's a good sign. That means you're doing something right. Do they want to be musicians professionally? Do you think any of them look like they would be interested in that?
No, none of them are really interested in music.
Dylan is not interested in it?
No.
On that level?
No, he plays oboe in the school band and stuff, and
yeah.
And but he just doesn't have any interest in music. You can't make somebody interested in music. They just are or they aren't,
But whatever it is, it has changed his, as you say, it has rewired him. I mean, that ability that he has to unlock the mysteries of music, he'll be able to take that all over. Obviously, it applies to language too. He's a multilingual, but also it's something that he can use in other areas of his life.
Absolutely. One day he might discover that there's that maybe there is an advantage to having this great ear that he has, but I don't know when that would be, and maybe one of my girls will get into it. I mean, they're still young. I mean, Dylan's 13. That's pretty much when I started getting serious about music. It's 13.
Absolutely.
So,
did you ever worry about putting his face online, sharing his story publicly, making it about him in any way?
I didn't really think about it. I mean, the first big viral video was something that one of my buddies that had been over to the studio, my friend Shane, said, "Hey, make a video of the hardest chords, for Dylan so I can show my wife." And I was like, okay. And Dylan, come on down here. And I set up my iPhone and I make it. And then I go to a school board meeting and I come home. I call up Shane. I was like, man, that video's got 22,000 views. He says, what? I said, yeah, that video. Did you see the thing? I put it up there for you. And the next day it's got 1 million views, and then 22 million views a week later and stuff. So, it wasn't meant to be anything other than hey, for my friend to show his wife,
It's incredible when that happens.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I hope you don't mind me asking. I have this question for you. I was talking to another producer friend, told him I was going to talk to you, and I said, I want to know about how he just organizes his time. It was the first thing I asked you. And my friend said, I bet he'll tell you that he doesn't drink or do any drugs.
I don't. I don't. But I'm not sure that has anything to do with how I organize my time. I am very obsessive compulsive, no question about it. Well, I don't know if I'm compulsive, but I can think about the same things over and over and over and over, and I never get bored with making videos or anything like that. It's just so interesting to me. And I never, ever lose that feeling that I had right when I started the channel. I never feel there's no drudgery ever of sitting down making videos. It's always fun every day. I feel very lucky.
I just want to follow up on that question, though, because I knew what he was saying. I mean, I understand where you say, well, I don't think that's what makes me productive or not productive or organize my time or not organize my time. But I mean, I don't excessively drink or do drugs, but I do enough that sometimes when I see people who I think are very productive, I wonder if there's just an aspect that is clouding me just a little, even if it's 10 minutes in the morning and maybe shutting down the work brain an hour earlier than I would normally, or, any of that stuff, that it's just a clarity thing.
I got this sleep app called Pillow for my iPhone or my iWatch that I never wear, but I wore it for about 2 months straight, and it would time how much you slept and show you how much REM you have and everything. And I realized that I never would sleep more than 4 hours a night. And some nights 2 hours and 50 minutes, some nights, 4.5, occasionally 5 hours, but rarely. But always be about 4 hours and 15 minutes. And I'd wake up and I'd feel fine. I wouldn't be yawning, wouldn't be tired. And I realized I just never have needed a lot of sleep. But when I fall asleep, as soon as I lay down, I'm asleep in 2 minutes. And I never, ever have music going through my head. Never. I never have anything going through my head. I can completely shut my brain down and just go to sleep. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'm not one of these people that obsess about ideas. And, I only when I have to do something do I think about it.
You say you don't have music going through your head. Do you listen to music
all the time?
Casually?
All the time. Last night I saw this girl. She's a singer, Brazilian singer, that she had done a thing with Antonio Sanchez on Antonio's channel. The song that she had written, Maro, her name is Maro. I heard a song that she did that she was singing with another Brazilian. She's obviously Brazilian, but she was singing harmonies. I started listening to it last night on my phone, and my daughter Layla said, "What is that?" She comes over and sits next to me. She said, "That's amazing." Layla's 7. Send that to me. And then Layla starts listening to it. She's like, "What language is that?" I said, "It's Portuguese." So she says, "Well, I'm going to learn Portuguese." So she immediately downloads the Duolingo Portuguese and starts doing it. She goes, "Oh, this is easy." And then today we were listening to more things. Well, I find out that Aaron, my old assistant, is really good friends with her. Just out of the blue. Both the people that were in the videos, they're 2 of his best friends.
Huh.
Just randomly. And but Layla was immediately, when she heard it, same taste that I have, all the harmony parts, everything that I liked, she liked.
The other thing that you described that I think is so interesting, though, is because this is how I process music also. If I find something that I like, I want to know everything about how it was made, where it was made, when it was made, if I recognize anybody else who's on it, and to be at a stage in my life where it's possible I might know somebody who was on it or have met them or talked to them or worked with them or whatever. I mean, that's also a big part of the way I'm trying to make sense of the musical universe around me.
100%. That's exactly how I am. Exactly.
And maybe it shows up in your channel too, but it's not work necessarily. It's not that you're looking for the angle. It's that you're constantly putting the great puzzle of music together.
One of the things that I'm blessed with, if you will, is that I have an incredibly good memory. I don't have to ever rely on notes to do anything. I don't have scripts. I always just riff. And that's from just reading liner notes, always going back, just like you're saying. I would, I find somebody on Instagram and I just start looking at every video they do. And then I go down the rabbit hole, and if they're doing something with another person, I click on theirs. I go down that rabbit hole. Then I said, until I find, and just to see what I find. But I constantly am listening to new music. That's one of my favorite things to do, is to find new stuff to check out.
And you've also talked about a little bit about how you learned how to practice again, or got back in touch with that sort of process of discovery on, in your case particularly, the guitar, but all on everything, that somehow by teaching you had to remember what it was like to learn again.
Yeah, it was really, at the beginning of my channel, it was strange to cover things that I hadn't talked about since 1992. It was really weird to teach things, but that came back really quickly. I don't know, the thing about practicing, I love to practice. My favorite thing to do. Oh my God. I can sit down, practice the piano, practice the guitar, practice the bass, whatever. And I can just get lost for hours and do it. It's the most fun thing for me. I just want to get better. I don't need to go out and play out or do anything like that. I don't care about that. I just want to get better at my instruments all the time.
You are one of the rare people, I relate to it also, who I think probably was not very affected by the last 12 months of COVID.
No. I mean, I've been really lucky. And,
But even in terms of your lifestyle, I mean, you go in the room and make the videos.
Yeah. I don't need anyone to come in ever. I just do my thing, and nothing's really changed as far as that's been concerned. And I mean, I can't travel anywhere. That's, and I didn't really travel that much, but now this time of year we'd be going out to the NAMM show out in LA or in Anaheim, and those things I would look forward to, because we'd get together and see all my YouTuber friends and everything, and see what new gear is out. I love that. But other than that, it's pretty much been no change in things.
Rick Beato, thanks, man. Thank you so much for taking time. It's a long time I've wished to talk to you, so thanks so much.
I appreciate it, Leo. It's been great. Thanks for having me.
There he was, my friends, Rick Beato. The deep cat, there's no way around it. I'm inspired, when you get next to somebody with that many ideas and that much devotion to the craft and to the output and to teaching and sharing it, you can't help but be a little bit inspired. I'll be back again before you know it with another deep dive. Until then, I'll talk to you soon.